Hopefully, you guys had a good weekend. The market was closed today, but is going to be open tomorrow. And this week is going to be huge with the Nvidia earnings and the FOMC minutes. So, we are doing things a little bit differently this week, which is we're going to be giving you the daily expected moves every single night. And we're going to talk through them every single night as well. And we're going to look at the day before. So, if you really do like this format, make sure to smash that like button. It'll tell me, hey, we really like to see this type of stuff on a day-to-day basis, and I will make it more of a regular thing. So smash that like button. But first, let's get into that technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, and AMD. Let's go into these daily expected moves. Yesterday's video, we already gave you those weekly expected moves for the SPY and the Qs. If you want the rest of the weekly expected moves for the stocks that we do cover on this channel, look down in the description, join my Patreon to get those. But now we are giving you guys those daily expected moves. So for tomorrow, this is what the options market has priced in. It looks like to the upside here, we got 502.26, and to the downside, we actually have 496.42. Now, the funny thing is, when we are talking about this stuff over the weekend and yesterday, last night, we really were mentioning something about this base. We were like, this looks really important, and maybe we actually want to make some kind of move up before we actually see prices pull down by Wednesday. Okay, what that would do is get us some kind of head and shoulders in this area. So this would tell me if we do see some positivity come in early on in the day tomorrow, look for that to get outside of this range, because that's all that the options market has expected, and we have that 68% chance to land back within this zone. This would actually maybe even be a test of this high, or just create some kind of right shoulder that gives us some good structure. And with some good structure, if we get some bad news, we can start to break down pretty quick, maybe even go all the way down towards the bottom of our weekly expected move for this week. Now, this week, if we do not get some very bad news that really starts to tip us over in the other direction, start a lot of negative trends, this is what we talk about on this channel a lot. And I think someone asked, how do I process what you're saying? Well, what you can do here is just pay attention to the 30-minute in the grand scheme of things. The 30-minute is a very good chart to look at. You can see if that is able to get into negative territory, but really you just want to say, hey, if there's divergence up here, I know there will be some kind of pullback. And then you want to say, is this actually remaining down here in negative territory? You have to be open to both scenarios. And the other scenario would be if we pull back, right? Price starts to pull back. Maybe we get towards that daily expected move, and then we start to curl back up on a 30-minute. That would tell me, hey, there's still some positivity left in this move. It's able to cross on this MACD. So when you're processing anything that I'm saying, really just think about both sides that I'm giving you, and then pay attention to the price action during your day. And the helpful part is I will be live a lot this week, and I'm planning on going live tomorrow morning. So make sure to turn those notifications on. Join me tomorrow morning for some live chart analysis. All right, in the Qs, we gave you those daily expected moves as well. If you need those weeklies, just go click on my last video, but 434.35 to the upside and 426.69 to the downside. So this is what the options market has priced in for the Qs. Looks like all week we are most likely going to see a little bit more wider ranges for the Qs for these tech stocks. So that just tells you that tech stocks could be a little more volatile this week, which makes sense with the earnings and how FOMC, the rates really do affect these tech stocks. Now, what I wanted to point out here is we are starting to see price get a little bit tighter, and we're also seeing some kind of divergence down here on the 5-minute, right? It hasn't confirmed, but we do see that divergence on the RSI and MACD at the same time. So if we wanted to go back up and test the top side of this daily expected move, these divergences here would tell you, hey, there's some momentum dying, and we might see some positivity. So that could very well happen. Now, will this actually come up and maybe come all the way to fill this gap up here? Possibly. We kind of left it behind, and we could come fill that very, very soon. Now, what we're looking at here is possibly picking up this, going with some kind of reverse head and shoulders, because we didn't necessarily violate the low on this. So we want to pay attention to these types of things. But overall, when you're looking at these daily expected moves, you really just want to pay attention to if we're getting outside of these really quick, we can see moves fade. If we're getting to the downside really quick, we could see some buying back up, because we do land within this zone 68% of the time. And the 30-minute is going to be very important, because we're getting really, really close to negative territory. So we do have that opportunity to possibly start some kind of negative trend going into negative territory on this 30-minute MACD for the Qs. So we do have kind of a head and shoulders up here that if we start to break below these levels that we're at right now, we actually could see some more selling come in. So we want to pay attention to that, because if this starts to get into negative territory, you do have a good shot to come test this low and maybe even take it out. So we want to pay attention to those types of things. Now, if we wanted that positivity to come in, maybe we do get a little bit more selling, look for that to roll back over into positive territory. And this is where you can pay attention to both sides of what I'm saying. If this actually does curl up, you would know, hey, maybe I don't want to short this. This could come up. This could test this high. And then if it does actually stay down in negative territory, you can say, hey, it's a good shot. It's going to test this low. Unless we are getting really quickly outside of this daily expected move before those events happen, that's really when I would see a bounce here. If we get outside of it before one of those big events like FOMC minutes or Nvidia earnings, then we could see us buy back up into it, and maybe we get some buying before the actual news comes out. So we just want to pay attention to these types of things, but you can pay attention to this 30-minute this week, see if it's able to curl up in positive territory. Might mean we're going to come up and fill this gap. And then if we actually keep sinking down into negative territory, most likely we're going to come and test this low pretty quick. Apple, we're mainly going to focus on these shorter time frames we were talking about this weekend. If you want to give yesterday's video a check out, because we were telling you about that 2-hour divergence. Okay, so the thing I wanted to point out in the recent price action here is Apple could see some selling come in. We're about to cross over down here on the MACD into negative territory. Will that set up some kind of divergence for us to get a 30-minute divergence behind that big 2-hour divergence, and we might even be able to roll over that daily chart? Okay, so if really what I'm paying attention to on Apple, if we do see selling, I'm looking for that divergence to confirm, get us nice and close to positive territory, and then get into positive territory. Then I will switch over to the 2-hour and see that crossover and be like, okay, the momentum is starting to switch to the upside. Now, if this wanted to bounce from this level, that's perfectly fine. It might be some kind of trap if it's too fast. Because if this is just a huge quick bounce all the way up to somewhere around 167 up into this zone up here, we could see those sellers jump back in pretty quick. So we really just have to pay attention on Apple to this MACD here, see if we're able to create a divergence. And then if we start to break down even lower, that would mean we're most likely not creating a divergence here, and we're going to continue this negative trend for quite some time, breaking through a very important trend line right here, this one. Amazon on the 30-minute, we had that divergence up here. Told you that we were going to get some kind of pullback. Now it looks like we're forming some kind of right shoulder, but really we're stuck in a range here. So we're stuck in a range, and we don't necessarily have the correct direction, right? We don't know which way this is going to go at this point. It could be some kind of head and shoulders to break down, but we did leave behind this gap. And we're right at the center line for our MACD down here. So we have to be open to both scenarios. If this wants to actually roll over into negative territory and break through this level, then we can see us maybe come and fill this gap down here right around that 160. But if we actually see this curl up and go into positive territory, break through this level here, good chance that we're going to come fill this gap, and we may even come test this high. That's where I will be paying attention to those weekly expected moves, those weekly ranges that I give out on Patreon for Amazon. Tesla, we had a great trade on this, right? And we're still paying attention to this gap up here. This gap is right around that 207.42 that we've marked as important for almost a month now. We've seen a lot of reactions from that 207.42 level, and we did have that 2-hour divergence. That was the good trade we're talking about. So you got that 2-hour divergence. We put out a video telling you about it, and boom, you get a 12-point move. Now you're getting that ABC pattern to complete. Now, if this wants to be a 5 push higher, that'd be 1, 2, 3, and then 4, maybe 5. This area right here would make a lot of sense. This is the base that we kind of had to, or the top side that we had to break out of to see some more positivity come in. And what this would do is really allow for possibly a divergence in the future. So if we don't see that continued strength, we might see some kind of reaction down and then see this MACD curl back up in positive territory. Now that could lead to that positivity, meaning that we're going to test the previous high or make a new one. So we could come up, test this high right here. If we're able to break through that, most likely we're going to go fill this gap. And then we'll have to pay attention from there and see if we're creating any divergences here. But Tesla does look pretty good. This was a pretty dang good trade. Really just pay attention if this is able to hold up at this level here. If it's not able to and it starts to break down lower, you have a good chance that something bad is happening in Tesla. Nvidia on the 30-minute, we were talking about how this thing is just skyrocketing up. We even brought up SMCI, the supercomputers, super microcomputers, because they look very similar. Both of the charts look very similar, right? We saw some buying like this back and forth for a long time, little bump up, and then we see that explosive move, very explosive move. And now we saw SMCI get that big red bar right around that price point of about 1,000. So we have to think, is that going to happen with Nvidia? And the thing is about this 30-minute, it's right at that center line. So if it wants to curl up, we can see more positivity. If it wants to go down, it could go into negative territory, meaning we could start that negative trend before the earnings even comes out. But I'm still going to warn you one more time. I do not trade around earnings. I've been beat up by it before, and you don't know what numbers they're actually going to produce, and you don't know how the market is going to react to the numbers that they do produce. We could see bad numbers, but good forward guidance, and then boom, the price goes up, and then you're sitting there angry looking at earnings that was bad, but you're seeing the price go up. So things like that can happen. That's why I just stay away from it. I would rather pay attention to other stocks. AMD, we were talking about, I think it was like right around here. We were saying if this is able to curl up, look how close it is to positive territory. We could start to break to the upside. If it wants to pull down even lower, maybe we look for a reaction down here. So it looks like that curl up, we actually gapped higher and went going. And then right at this point, we were saying, hey, look out for some kind of retest. So it looks like we're getting some kind of retesting here, and we're still right next to positive territory. So if this is able to curl up, we're most likely going to see more positivity. Just tells me, hey, we can test this level. And I'm really thinking we may even come and test this level before Nvidia earnings. So I really want to pay attention to that. If we start to make another high up here, then I'll start to pull up a 1 hour or 2 hour, look for that divergence, see if there's some weakness. But really, I think AMD is only going to move based on what Nvidia produces this week. The VIX on the shorter time frames, we do have these divergences down here. Okay, we have the divergences right here, but is that just going to be a little pop of volatility, maybe to fill this gap, or even just a little pop and then come back down? Because I really think we have a good shot to hit these levels down in here before we see extreme volatility come back into this market. You just notice once we get down to these types of levels, we see little pops in volatility. So I wouldn't be surprised if we wanted to go head down there first. So that's really what I'm paying attention to. I already pulled up the weekly on the VIX. So if you really want to see the weekly chart and why we are saying volatility can come back into this market really, really fast, you need to go click on that last video, because we're showing you the VIX. We're showing you the signals that all happened before we saw some big crashes, some big bear markets. And so we have to pay attention to them. Doesn't mean it has to happen, right? We just need some bad news behind it in order for it to actually happen. But it's just a time that the VIX is really telling you, hey, it's time to be a little bit cautious once more. So the main takeaway here is, like this video if you enjoyed getting the daily ranges for the SPY and the Qs. It'll encourage me to keep doing it, and it just makes me know that you guys find it valuable and you would like to see it more in these videos. It is a time to be cautious. We have some huge events coming up with Nvidia earnings and the FOMC minutes, so be careful out there. But thank you as always for watching. I wish you all the luck in the world trading this week, and I hope you have a good night. Peace.